Thank you, Prakisha. Welcome everyone to our webinar on as part of our series on the promising practices. This is actually a follow-up to our training we did early this year in January on data visualization, where we went over dashboards and infographics. And so during that time, we know some of our participants have continued to work on their projects that they got in the training. And today we're going to hear from states that have developed some infographics with their NRS data, and they'll be presenting their work. Running our series this year has been Marcella Mobit, who will, I'm now going to turn it over to her.
Thanks, Larry. As you see in this slide, right now all of your phones are muted to minimize the background noise. And if at any point you do need to speak, then you'll just want to dial *7. When you're done, you want to dial *6 to unmute your phone, or sorry, to remute your phone. And throughout the webinar, you can use our chat pod that's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to send a message to everyone, or just to the host, and you'll see that it says Larry's name there. We want to welcome you all to our webinar, and then, as I said, I want to give you a little bit of background to the webinar series, and we'll do our state presentations. And last but not least, we'll have questions. And I really want to stress that we do want to keep all of the questions to the end so that we have enough time to hear from all of our presenters. As we go through, as the presenters are speaking, you can feel free to type into your chat pod any questions that come up. Don't lose those. However, we'll come back to those, and I'll facilitate a discussion with our presenters at the end after the presentation. So what is this Promising Practices in Program Management and Data Use webinar series? This is part of our ongoing effort to help you improve your use of data so that you improve your program in turn. For those of you who have participated before in our webinar series, you know that each webinar looks at a strategy that we know that you are using or looking to use to help improve your program. And the idea is to hear from states that have successfully implemented the strategies so that you can see what it looks like in practice, so that it's no longer a theoretical idea that sounds like it would be nice to put into place, but something that actually can be put into place. And we've found that it's very helpful to states and to programs when they are able to see what is being done. So as Larry and Prakisha said, today's topic is infographics, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we all have a common understanding of what infographics are before we move on to state presentations. Infographics are graphic visual representations of information, data, or knowledge. So they're a great way to visually see and complex information, and it makes it easy to understand because you can see more than just the numbers. And it's created for the purpose of telling a specific story for a specific audience. And I know that our presenters will be really speaking to this a little bit later on. And I wanted to share with you an infographic about why we should use infographics. So let's say you have a conceptual idea that you want to share. What traditionally has been done is just sort of writing it down. And the problem with that is that you leave it to your audience to interpret it. See here, it shows people saying, what's the goal? Where do we start? And the outcomes are, again, the concepts are open to misinterpretation. Your audience might be disengaged, and sometimes it's a little difficult to read or understand. On the other hand, if you do decide to go with infographics, your idea can be illustrated instead. And we see here that your audience will say, aha, I get it. Wonderful. And so you have much better outcomes. We've seen that 60% of the population are visual learners, and so these infographics really speak to them. People connect with the visuals. They get a better understanding. And so you can use infographics for presentations, like we're doing here, worksheets, reports, or tracking tools. So really, infographics are a great way to convey your idea so that there is a minimal amount of confusion. Creating a infographic, what you really want to think about is the visual impact that you can have. It's not enough to just decide that you want to draw a picture and have that represent your number. You really want to think about retention, sharing ease, comprehension, and appeal. So in sum, an effective infographic, much like the ones that our presenters will be sharing today, shares information quickly and clearly, and as you'll see, it's much more than just a pretty picture. And now to turn it over to Travis from Kansas.
My name is Travis Combs from Seward County Community College in rural Kansas. I'm the Director of Adult Basic Education here, and I'll just start with my presentation. So when I was in, a little bit of background as to why I've even created an infographic, I attended the NRS training in Denver in regards to linking data quality with action, evaluating and improving local programs. We were charged with, identifying one key issue that we were facing as a state, and then asked to present it in a small group later on. And then really the reason I created the infographic is I kind of stole it from Kentucky, but they told me I could use it, and to basically promote our program. And a lot of people are using the internet to find information nowadays, and so one of the major challenges is you lose that face-to-face ability to actually effectively communicate to them directly. So one question I always had was how do you effectively communicate information to those people? And so I decided the infographic was the best way to do that, by providing information that was more eye-catching and easy to understand, but also had to keep in mind that it needed to be unique, appealing, interesting, and cause less boredom. By creating an infographic, you'll most likely grab your audience's attention, and they also provide opportunities for professional development. I know that we've used them here in our program to represent the data that we do receive as a program and as a state, to provide information to our instructors and people on campus, and also just to be knowledgeable about what our program is, rather than having to read it all out in black and white. They're all important tools when teaching. I've gone through this with my instructors and taught them how to create the infographics, and they're now using them in the classroom. Marketing and recruiting are two of the biggest key things, key reasons as to why I created the infographic. And then also here, coming up in October, I'll be presenting to our Board of Trustees using an infographic rather than typing it all out in black and white. So what was I thinking while I was creating my infographic? A lot, actually, because I'd never done it before. But who was my audience going to be? And I knew that my audience was going to be high school diploma-seeking students, students who wanted to learn English, and then in Kansas we have the AOK proviso, which allows career and tech ed students who are interested in career and tech ed but don't have a high school diploma. And then again in October I'll be presenting to our Board of Trustees, but I've also presented it to other community members as I serve as the president of our Cinco de Mayo committee. I'm on the Seward County United Way board, and so it's a different way to advertise different events and initiatives. How did I decide what to include? We get tons of data about our programs here in Kansas regarding EFL levels, employment rates, post-secondary transitions, AOK students, multiple things with data. And a lot of times in meetings we always hear, well, what do we do with the data? And to be honest, before that before creating the infographic, I never really did much with data other than look at it and decide, hey, yeah, we're doing good or we're doing bad. So I had to think outside of the box and offer my prospective students something that they'd not seen before. to draw their attention. So I knew that it had to be appealing to their eyes, it had to be easy to understand, and it had to leave a lasting image and open their eyes. But most of all, I had to persuade them to actually seek out my services here in our program. So the first infographic that I created was what's called the Colvin. It's a new newsletter that I started after I got back from Denver, talking about enrolling now. And I basically identified, why is it worth going back to school? Talked about how much a dropout would earn over their lifetime, how much graduates would earn, all the way up to those who have completed higher education. So that was something to draw their attention. As dollars, everybody sees money, and this was a way to catch their attention. I also got to provide data about our success of our program, and then also identify our enrollment was going to be on August 4th at a certain time. So as you can see, it kind of tells a little bit about our program. We've helped over 800 people earn their high school diploma, 3,690 make an educational gain, and we've served over 6,500 students. So that was my first infographic that I created. It was really quick, short, and didn't take a whole lot of my time to do it. But it was effective, as I'll show you here in a little bit as far as how it was effective. I'll show you my second infographic. This was in regards to what we call Accelerating Opportunity Kansas. And when you do these, they're not really this pixelated, but for now they are. So this was just to draw in attention to one of the initiatives we have going on in Kansas to provide students with the ability to enroll in career and tech ed classes as well as adult ed and still complete their degree. So I just listed a couple of different things about what Accelerating Opportunity is, what the population is, and then, increase their advancement in their job or career. I talked about the different funding sources, identifying that there really is no cost to that student. At my college, we have identified that we would waive all student fees for that student in that pathway, but also the state would pick up their tuition for the classes as long as they were co-enrolled with us. And there's more to that, but I don't know where it went. There's like 3 more pages to it. But it basically identified what each pathway was and outlined the path they would take. And then my third infographic that I just created last week, because I had to get it in the board books so they could send them out, was an infographic for our trustees. It's been a while since my program. I just took over in January, but it's been a while since the Adult Learning Center is presented to the Board of Trustees, so I really wanted to give them an idea of what it is we do and what we do it with. So I identified our funding sources because a lot of them really have no idea what our funding sources are because we are federally and state funded, but we also receive a local match, and we receive civics, education money, and then professional development money. And then I outlined basically what the trend was in our budget for the past couple of years, last 5 years. And then basically what our program improvement plan is for this upcoming year, kind of to give them an idea of what it is we're doing and what we're aiming to do for our program. I also identified a couple other things using data from our program, but this was our educational functioning level projections for my program in the state of Kansas. So I kind of just got to outline that and really show them what it is we're doing in our program, because oftentimes they don't really know. And so I'm taking this as a great opportunity to promote my program to the trustees. I've shared it with a lot of people, the Director of Marketing and Publications. She's the one who sends out all the news reports and things like that. Admissions, they are now using it to promote the different programs at the college. TRIO, Tri-State HEP, who we have our Spanish GED program through. Career and Tech Ed, because I'm working with them with the AOK program. The Education Program Manager for Title V, Business and Industry, puts on a lot of classes in our community. And traditionally, they would just send out black and white flyers promoting their program. Now they're using the infographics to promote their program and classes, and I've presented these things at Dean's Council. In October, I'll be meeting with the Board of Trustees, Seward County United Way, and then also the Kansas Board of Regents. So what results have I seen? Anecdotally and supported by data, and right now we're only in Q1 for this fiscal year, but FY14 Q1's enrollment was 158 learners, and in Q1 of this year, our enrollment's been 180 students, so that's basically a 13.9% increase in students from 14 to 15 just in Q1. Now that you're probably thinking, well, you probably just had more people come into your program. But what we do when students enter our program is we ask them, how did you hear about us? And the majority of our students listed 3 main means of recruitment. It was the infographic on our Facebook page, and then by word of mouth. So we really took that in as a great recruiting and marketing tool for our program, because we identified it as being positive. They could relate to it. They understood what we were doing. They were interested, and they thought that our program was now valuable to them. So how successful do I feel the infographics been? I feel it's been really successful. I've created now 2 additional infographics based on the feedback from the first one, and so I imagine I'll be creating a whole lot more in the near future. Some of my greatest challenges was to create something that people would find interesting, beneficial, and valuable. I could put anything on an infographic, but if it wasn't interesting, or people didn't think it was beneficial, or they didn't find value in it, then it's probably a waste of my time. So I really had to think about who my audience was. The greatest successes, well, our student numbers have increased. People are now asking questions about the different programs we offer through Accelerating Opportunity Kansas. And our Board of Trustees will now be able to see through factual data the value in our program and what it is we're providing to the community. How will I use it in the future? We'll continue to recruit, market, present, develop, update, publish, and compete with other programs in our area. You know, competition is a big thing these days because everybody has their own area. What changes will I make and why? If I want to change something, I just do it. It's simple, quick. I can add or delete anything I want at any time. And I've now started a list of infographic to-dos. Basically, I think of an idea that I could represent well on an infographic, I write it down, and then I'll get to that later. What would I tell other programs who are interested in putting together an infographic? This is what I did. I went to PictoChart because that's where I learned from Kentucky. And then I would just recommend you sign up for a free trial version. It's truly 100% free. You won't get full access to all of the templates, but you'll get access to a lot of them. If it is a program that you do like, I would consider contacting PictoChart for special pricing. Basically, just be aware of the potential gain that your program could obtain. The fee for educational programs is $39.99 a year. If you weren't an educational program, I think it's $29.99 a month. So there's a huge saving. And no, I don't get paid by PictoChart to say that. I just think it's such a valuable tool for my program. What to include and not to include? I would really just stress including actual data, not what you hope it will be. Stay away from adding your opinions. Include success stories. Show positive and negative gains, because not everything we do has a positive outcome. So make sure it's real and they can relate to it. And then most of all, remember who your audience is going to be. Other considerations, share your experiences with your coworkers in other departments. I've gotten a lot of praise from other departments as far as thanks for showing me that awesome resource. now I can promote my program even better. Offer professional development at different all-staff events or business and industry. I'll be teaching an infographics class for business and industry for community members, and then I'll also be doing an all-staff presentation over the infographics. And most of all, it's a new way to attract our target audience, which is adult education in my case. And then my contact information, if any of you have any questions or want to see the full infographics, you can email me, and I'd be happy to send them your way. Or if you need to call or get a hold of me or anything like that. So,
great. Thanks so much, Chuck. Really appreciate that. Our next presenter is Terry Tackett from Kentucky. And Terry, if you will press *7, that will unmute you and take it away.
All right, thanks. This is Terry Tackett from Kentucky, and we took a little different approach on our infographic than Travis did. And basically, we had a background on this. We wanted something new and different, eye-catching. We wanted a lot of information, easy to read, basically quick facts, not a large amount of text to read. Our audience was basically Congressman Hal Rogers' staff. Reese Stagnolia was going to visit and wanted to give them some information. So our infographic was very defined, so we started it at that point. So considerations in creating it, you have to know the audience, have a story or facts that you want to tell or show, and then you have to make sure you have the data to include into it. So you have to look at your theme, the layout, time frame on when you have to have it done. Also, remember, the day of social media, everybody wants it quick and fast, not a lot of text. So here is a copy of the infographic we used. And you can tell that we used the theme of Post-it notes because of an office setting. I didn't know what color Post-it notes to use, so I used yellow and pink. That way it was kind of stick out a little bit. And we were comparing the state population and the 5th district population, which he is the congressman of. So not everybody would understand the story we're trying to tell, but his office and his staff will understand this. And we used not only NRS data, but we also used American Community Survey data. That's where we got the 18 to 64 without diploma and all that, and sourced that at the bottom. But basically, ours was a different audience, very specific, so our story was very easy to tell just to that office. Okay. How we used it, again, it was for Congressman Hal Rogers' staff. Tell the story of how the 5th district is in need of adult education, and then also show how the 5th district impacts adult ed overall state performance in adult ed. Okay. Results, we really didn't have many results at this point in time. It's hard to determine if we get some further inquiries or something from them. We'll be able to go from there. Looking forward, you can use this same type of infographic if you're doing something for a local senate or something of that nature. Also, we can add different concepts to the design of the reports into our CARES data system. So basically dashboard type of reports that they can print out of the system. We're going to have the same look and feel as the infographs, so the outside programs can use some of this NRS data. Okay. Also, we're looking at updating our state profile using an infographic. I've added a draft copy of it because it's not final yet. And basically, you can tell this tells a little different story than the other infographic does. You got your return on investment, enrollment, profile, and then on the second page, I don't think I included it, but we have like transitioning to college. That way we can also tie into the return on investment, how many people earn degrees, and so forth. We have a lot of that information we add to that. The best tips, again, is determine your audience and the story you want to tell, or the facts you're wanting to tell. Choose the theme based upon your audience. Again, that goes back to what Travis was saying. You want something that will catch their eye. Schedule plenty of time to create it. It doesn't take long to do an infographic, but it takes a little bit of time to plan out what data you want, to make sure you have the data, diagnose what story you want to tell. And when we started, we had 4 or 5 little pieces of data, and then next thing you know, we can add this. Can we add this? So you can always build to that story, but always remember that less is more, because the less you can add to the document and less text, the more it will stick out to them. And I think that's all I had today. My contact information is here. If you need to give us a call or go over anything, don't hesitate. Also, my email is attached.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Terry.
All right.
It was really interesting to see how your audience might change what your infographic looks like. Last but not least, we have Mark from Utah, who will be sharing with us how Utah has been using infographics.
Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Mark Mataya. I work here at the Utah State Office of Education Adult Ed Services. I guess I'll start out with the background slide here. We were at that same training that Terry and Reese and David were at back last January, and kind of along the same idea, our state legislature was going to meet in the following weeks after that training. So money was on our mind and getting funded and all that good stuff. So we thought, well, shoot, if we're going to have to create an infographic, let's do something that helps with some advocacy, give some basic information about adult ed in Utah, and that kind of thing. So some of the considerations when we created this, of course, was we had to identify who our target audience was, and we thought that it would be people who knew very little about adult education. I'm sure that the rest of you didn't start your careers in adult ed, and before you ever worked in adult ed, you probably had little idea of what adult ed did. So we wanted to get the very basics out there. We also wanted to show how we're important and why we're worth funding. So the basic information that we chose to include on our infographic was just the basics, student populations that we served, maybe the number of students that we did serve in Utah, and did we have any kind of data that told the story of what the return on investment was in adult ed in Utah. There's our infographic. On the top we have kind of the red kind of leads you on to the main things we wanted to talk about. I do think we were a little wordy in the middle there. If you guys see our parts on our student populations, of course you guys would be familiar that we do ESL and basic literacy and high school completion of some sort. I do think that text in there is a little small, if I'm going to critique myself. But if you see, we've got a basic number there of students that we enrolled across Utah in 2013-14. And when we created this, of course, we used 12-13 data, and so I've had to update that. And then on the bottom right is our return on investment. We had a study done in 2012 that said that for every $1 we spent on adult ed, there was $3.45 returned in taxpayer benefits. And we kind of like showed those little icons on the bottom. Basically, they increase, they have earning potential, they increase their economic impact, and we decrease welfare services with adult education. So that's the kind of basic, it's very basic information. We thought that programs could use this to either talk to their legislators or whatever. So that was one of the ways that they were going to use it. We actually never used it directly, that session, that legislative session. We can't advocate directly to legislators from the state office. So I don't know, maybe some programs did, but I don't think anyone had it until after the session was over. We did use it in June, where we had this was our first year to combine comp guidance services along with adult ed and other at-risk programs like safe and drug-free schools and all that kind of stuff. So we had a huge combined summer conference. I think it ended up being like 1,300 educators across the state came. And so we took that infographic, printed it out onto foam core, and it was like maybe like a 2.5 by 4 foot, nicely well done chart. And then we've had that set up in various locations so that people could get an idea kind of about what we were about and why we think we're important. We also put it in our Adult Education Quick Reference Guide, which we have in print and electronic on our webpage. And again, I said we've given this a program so that they can advocate for adult ed. So the results, I wish I had a great stat like Travis had. That was really good, really direct feedback. We only have anecdotal, maybe. I guess that people might have come up and asked more about what we were doing, but I don't really have strong empirical data for you on that. I do think it has helped change our way of thought. I think Terry had mentioned how one group used to, maybe it was Travis, they used to send out black and white flyers and full of text and all that kind of thing. And I don't think that kind of stuff cuts it anymore. I think that we do a lot of stuff via the internet, and so we're looking for more visually appealing types of things. People's attention span, they're shorter, and our eyes reject the normal, and so having something that stands out is worth it, I believe. Our challenge, I think, I know that we've used that pick to chart, and I guess you could purchase it, and it's pretty cheap. But if you're looking to use multiple platforms or multiple services, online services, it's hard to find those for free that are really robust. Usually you've got, like that pick to chart one, the free version. It's okay, but it's really not very robust, and you've got to really be good at what you're doing in order to create something of worth. And I think our successes, honestly, are that we're able to create these things in a very short amount of time. The great things about these programs like Pick the Chart, and I use the program called easel.ly, and that was a free service, is that you can make these really quick. You can see what other people are making, and you can make something that's visually appealing in a short amount of time. And honestly, it was actually just fun for me to do. It was a little bit different from the normal, what I usually do. And so I thought it was just fun. I thought that was a kind of a success. So in the future, I do believe we'll use that the infographic in our conferences for trainings, blogs. We have a blog, and we also do webinars, just kind of like how we're doing this one across the state. And the changes that we'll make to it, because we had data for a specific year, we'd have to update it annually. So that's a consideration maybe if you're going to create an infographic. And I guess if you look back on that infographic, we had a bunch of people help me look at it. I looked at it quite a few times, and the whole idea was that our target audience knew very little about adult ed, and I didn't put any contact information on that thing. I realized that was a pretty big error there, but anyways, and I also think that I don't think you rest on your laurels much. I don't know how many times I might use that infographic. I might use it one more year, but I really think that the idea is to give someone something new to look at and put up-to-date information on and all that good stuff. So we'll probably end up scrapping and redesigning that. So since it was so fun, here are a few other things that I kind of I'm kind of a geek about this kind of stuff. So, and and if they're not that artistically appealing, I'm not the greatest in the world, and I'm actually colorblind. So if the colors don't match, let me know. But anyways, I'm going to be doing a webinar here in about a week, and we've got this tool that our students can use, and it's called Utah Futures. And a lot of states probably have something like this, where it's an online service where a student can go in and they can find out what kind of interest they have for jobs and how to apply for scholarships and all that kind of stuff. So I'm actually going to use their infographic on the left for my webinar next week. The infographic on the right, I don't have a plan to use, really. I just kind of thought this would be something in case I wanted to talk about transition. We are going to have a professional development on transition in November, so I might give this to the presenter or have that presenter tell me how to change it to fit her presentation. But I just kind of got nerdy and made another one. Go to the next slide here. And we have used the chart on the right. So one of the things that we're trying to do is just probably like every other state is to increase our outcomes in our different EFLs for our NRS reporting, and we're really trying to push that. So we put that little chart up on the right while we're talking about that, and we thought that we'd give some sort of financial incentive to programs for meeting state targets, and so I think that a lot of you probably have seen something like this. Hey, the question is your program meeting state targets? And if it's yes, hey, you get money. If the answer is no, then hey, do you have a plan to change that? And if your answer is still no to that, hey, are you serious? Right? And if your answer is yes, then of course that's going to lead to more money for your program. So it was kind of a fun way to have kind of a because this is always a delicate situation. How is your program doing? And everyone wants to say, hey, your program's great. But, this is kind of a fun way to say, hey, let's talk about making improvements. And we're also going to maybe throw a little extra money your way for making targets this year. And so the second infographic that would match up with that discussion, and we haven't used it yet, and we might not use it, but we probably will, is this chart on the left. We've been talking about meeting higher standards, and we've always called it raising the bar. And so now we decided to call it raising the bar. The time is now! ! And we've got a little heister there lifting the bar. And I tried to show where our performance gap was across the state based on last year's outcomes versus this year's targets. And I hope that it kind of showed very plainly. And I guess the idea of these infographics is to really tell a story. Can you imagine trying to explain ESOL 1 through 6 and ABE 1 through 4, in a memo, and trying to talk about what our performance gap is and what that probably isn't suited very well to a text kind of format, where an infographic might tell the story much better in a shorter amount of time, and of course it's visually appealing. So anyway, so that's another infographic we made. And so the tips that I have for people who are making these kinds of things is, have other people look at your infographic. A lot of us are artists. If you've got an artist that does this kind of stuff at where you work, then that's great. But I would have multiple people look at it. I'd also say don't reinvent the wheel. There's a gazillion infographics out there, and they might inspire a basic kind of design. So that can actually get you started. What you need to keep in mind is to make sure you've got a clear message, one big idea that you're trying to talk about. Don't spread yourself out too much by trying to tell the world the entire story of everything. Have one basic big idea you want to talk about. And also, the more infographics you do, the better you'll get at making infographics. I'm not going to tell you which one I made last, so if you guys think I've gotten worse, then maybe that makes me a liar or not. But I do think that you'll get better at it. You'll at least get faster at it. You'll better have an idea of what kind of information you're going to want to include. And some of the things you shouldn't include, you should be making your graphics colorful. They should be fun. That's the whole visually appealing aspect. Also, don't use too many different font sizes or styles within your infographic. It should kind of flow with something. I guess you could use different font sizes and styles if that was your meaning, was to separate two disparate ideas or thoughts, but the general idea is to keep things kind of consistent. And you might want to avoid too much. I think Terry had talked about you can always add things, but sometimes less is more. And other considerations are, when I first was playing around looking for free resources online to make infographics, I actually just would sign in with my own Google account, and then when it came time to have someone else maybe help out with creating it or adding a data piece or two, they couldn't log into my user account. So if you guys have like a generic email account or some generic way to have a login and all that, that's probably a better idea than what I started out with. And there's my contact information if anyone needs anything.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark. Now I wanted to open it up to any questions that anyone had. We did receive a question regarding previous webinars, information, and the PowerPoints from those. Those are available on the nrslabs.org website, so please make sure to visit that so that you can see what else we have covered in our webinar series. They're always very informative. Can you please repeat for us what the program was that you were using? You said it was easel.ly. Could you spell that for us?
Yeah, here, let me look it up here. Hang on a second, sorry. It's EASEL.ly.
And if you could just put that into the chat to everyone.
Okay.
As well, that might be an easier way in case somebody missed that when you're spelling it.
Okay.
For the presenters, in your experience, how easy has it been to add your infographics to PowerPoint presentations?
I'm still logged in, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was actually super easy because a lot of these programs, what they've got is some sort of exporting tool, and so you can export it into like a PDF or into like a JPEG or something, and so then it's just as easy as importing any kind of other image document. So pretty easy.
Great.
Marcella?
Yeah.
This is Travis. I haven't really put them into a PowerPoint through using PictoChart. Once you create the infographic, there's also a presentation tab. And so when I'm doing my Board of Trustees presentation, I'll just use PictoChart and put it into presentation mode. And then it will also, it'll slide through, it'll rotate. It works a little bit different than PowerPoint, but I've played around with it on my computer. I haven't presented it yet, but I like it better than PowerPoint, actually.
That's an excellent tip, Travis, and I think we'll be using it here among the project, the NRS project team. So thank you for mentioning that. Had a question.
This is Terry. Also, to go along with what they was talking about PowerPoint, it is very easy. Like I said, you can download it into PDF and drop right into PowerPoint.
Thank you. Have any of the three presenters found any cheaper alternatives to the expensive Tableau software?
Hey, this is Mark. A really simple way to maybe create some of these, and most people probably have it, is on just Microsoft Publisher. I know that our secretary's made a few things similar to infographics just using Publisher, and then of course you can import Excel graphs and that kind of stuff into a Publisher document.
And I apologize if it wasn't clear. The program that they were asking about was Tableau.
I've never even heard of that one. Okay. So I think that I saw that one when I was out there looking just for different stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of different ones on there. You just want to be careful, what you're using maybe, but there's a ton of things out there, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Terry. Also, we use PictoChart for ours. But one thing I have noticed is if you take a chart or something that you already have built, and it has colors or different things to it, and you try to import that into PictoChart, it does distort it a little bit if you try to use it as a print version. But I think if you publish it, it comes out a little clearer. But if you're going to use paper, like flyers or something like that, it does distort the chart a little bit if you try to import it.
And I'm going to add on to that. If you use the trial version, you won't be able to export it as a PDF. That's something you get with the Pro edition of it, I guess, is what it's called. And that's when you're allowed to, convert it to a PDF. Also, another thing that I like about it is any infographic that I create, I can publish it to the web and put words like when people are searching adult ed in Kansas. I can put keywords to try to get my infographic bumped up to where they might see my infographic, or I can attach it to our webpage. So.
And that segues quite nicely into our next question about what are good ways to present pictograms online. Have you found one program to be particularly good or useful?
Well, any of them should be just about easy enough. Although I think that there's you can have a embed code with the PictoChart. Is that true, Travis? I think that it had that, didn't it?
Yeah, it has a code, and then you can send it out to people you want to view your infographic with you, and then you can actually present it. Like if I wanted to present it, I would be the host, just like you guys are with this WebEx meeting. I would be the host, and I can click through my infographic, and then it would change to everybody who's looking at that link that I sent them.
But honestly, you could take any of these programs where you can export it into like any kind of picked image file, and then use a second product that has an embed code, and like I guess like Instagram or something like that, and you could use that, I guess. But
and the cost for using PictoChart, I think we talked about this previously, and Travis, you addressed it, so if you could just refresh our memories.
It's $39.99 per year for educational programs or entities. What I had to do was, when you're looking at PictoChart.com, it's not really going to say it's $39.99 a year for educational programs, but if you there's a Contact Us button, and I just emailed them asking them if there was a different subscription price for educational programs, and they said yes. And then when I went to go pay, then that's when it flipped over to the $39.99. If you don't want to use it for your educational purposes, then I believe it's $29.99 a month. But again, the trial version is free. You have access to, from 50 already templates that are already created. If you purchase the subscription, you have access to hundreds. There are different types of PictoChart templates. There are. If I were to create one, I could choose whether or not I wanted to create an infographic, a report, a banner, or a presentation. And it's been valuable to me. With the templates that are already created, they don't take a whole lot of time. You can just simply click and type over the wording that's already there, if it fits the kind of infographic you're wanting to create, or you can create one from scratch. I haven't created one from scratch yet. I've just imported and changed wording and data around to fit what I needed to. And it's been really, really quick. So.
Yeah, this is Mark again.
Yeah.
So kind of piggybacking off of what Travis is talking about, just so people don't think that you got to be super skilled to do this. Even I was able to make one of these, and my first time maybe using PictoChart, I think I spent a couple hours making that first infographic, and maybe 3 hours, 4 hours at tops. But that was just because I didn't know how to use Pictochart yet. So once I got to learn the program itself, I mean, I think you can make an infographic in under an hour, and it's drag and drop technology. It's very, very, very easy to do. If you can basically do some basic stuff with like with Word or with PowerPoint, then you can use any of these products.
Yeah. And I think at our training, we also suggested that everybody just go to the website and check it out, see what you can do with the program. And, it's free to enroll in the trial, and so it's a good opportunity for you to practice how you can use these infographics and what you can do to share information graphically about your own program. Okay, so I just want to thank everyone for participating, and we hope that you'll join us. Keep an eye out for our information on our next webinar in our series. Thanks again.